Good afternoon now. I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster here with Weather Now, Kentucky. And yes, we have a significant severe weather episode available or potential tonight, I should say. Sorry, trying to find the words to accurately describe this without being one of those fear mongers. But this is a real deal type of setup for tonight. And then a potential another round tomorrow to discuss with you. We'll briefly go over that. As I've explained multiple times, what happens tonight and in the morning tomorrow will greatly affect what we see tomorrow evening. So we're not going to go into tomorrow evening too much. Unfortunately, it's just more of a play-by-ear type of event for tomorrow evening. But for tonight, it's definitely one of our, yeah, I would feel comfortable saying our largest severe threat in quite some time here in the state, at least since last spring, of course. It's pretty remarkable some of the things that we're seeing, and we'll show you where to expect everything, what time to expect everything, what exactly we're expecting to see. We'll break it down city by city, county by county there for you, and hopefully answer a lot of your questions. Of course, I'm not going to go into everyone's back porch because then we'll be here all day, folks. And of course, I think you guys want me seeing the new data versus answering every single back porch here. But of course, before we get started, we're going to allow everyone a couple minutes to get in here, so get comfortable. If you wouldn't mind while we're waiting, tap the share button at the bottom portion of your screen. That's a way to spread our information out, help us grow. Also help us to inform your friends and family on your friends list on Facebook. So share this on your news feed so your friends and family can view it. I would appreciate that. I'm sure they would appreciate that as well. Once we get to about 70 shares, I know it's about time to roll. So thank you guys for your help with that. We appreciate it. Thank you for all the likes and shares on YouTube and Facebook. I see them coming through already. Thank you very much. Zixie, hello from Vine Grove. Julius asked about Shelbyville, Kentucky. We'll get into that. Lexi, good afternoon to you, my friend. I appreciate you stopping in. Zach, Sarah, sorry, I'm like stuttering a lot today. I'm not really sure why. Zach, Sarah, Candace, Amanda, Tina, Tiffany, Alina, thank you guys for sharing the broadcast. I appreciate you. We're about halfway to our goal there. Sheriff from Barron County, thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate that very much. Leisha's asking about Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky won't see a thing really until tomorrow evening, so you're not going to hear me talk too much about Eastern Kentucky, but I will touch base a little bit on what to expect for Saturday evening for you guys. Charlie, how you doing out there? Austin, good afternoon to you. I'm sorry, I've been saying good morning on the phone all morning, and now I'm trying to transition to afternoon, and it's kind of getting stuck in my head there a little bit. But thank you guys for tuning on in. If you haven't, or if you are just now tuning in here with us, you have not missed a thing. We haven't started rolling into anything. We're going to look at the new SPC forecast. And I think they have another one coming out here in about 30 minutes. We're also going to look at the newest model data coming through right now. Look at the current conditions because the current conditions matter as to what we're expecting to see later on tonight. By the way, real quickly, if you have any friends or family in Middle Tennessee, down to Georgia, down to Alabama, Mississippi, all those folks down there, make sure you're telling them if they're not in a sturdy structure, they probably need to find one for the next 36 hours. I mean, they're in for an absolute wild ride. While we have our own wild ride to worry about, I'm not as worried for us as I am for those folks down there. But don't get me wrong, we still have a substantial threat here at home to talk about with you guys. Again, we're not going to go into every single person's backyard here, but I will touch base on the counties that are at play here. If you do not hear me mention your county or your city tonight or in this broadcast, it probably means you have nothing to worry about. So, for example, if you're in Carrollton, Kentucky, I'm not talking about Carrollton, Kentucky, because Carrollton, Kentucky has no reason to be concerned about anything. You're barely going to see a thing, actually, besides just some rainfall later on tomorrow. So, for example, again, if you don't hear me... If you don't hear me touch base on your area, it's probably a good thing. I'm not going to miss any areas that are at play here. All right. So about 10 more shares, and then we'll get going on the broadcast. Again, I have a certain number that I know it's about time to roll in. I like to give folks enough time to get in here and get settled in. Malia, Jenna, Brandy, Barbie, Kathy, Carol, so on and so forth. Thank you guys for all the shares on the broadcast. I appreciate your help. Again, if you're just now tuning in, I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster here with Weather Now Kentucky, and we do have a substantial severe threat for tonight in some portions of the state. If you're just now rolling into the broadcast, you have not missed a thing, so just buckle up and kind of listen to what I have to say here, and then we'll get to some of the questions at the end of the broadcast. All right, let's go ahead and pull up our main screen here, and I want to go ahead and just talk about the current conditions that we're seeing because I know we're in March. A lot of folks have been rooting for the warm weather. But anytime we get warm weather like this in March, it usually results in a night like tonight. Now, typically, it's not as severe, but mid-70s already here by the noon hour for a lot of folks throughout Kentucky. And some folks are going to make a run at the mid-80s today by about 3 or 4 o'clock Eastern time. So substantial heating taking place. For context, we don't usually see those types of temperatures until, on average, until after Derby. So we're seeing some substantial heat for here for March after what was one of the top 10 coldest Januaries since the 2000s started, or since 1980s, I should say. So, or a real flip, in the dynamics that we're seeing here. Also, we just want to kind of show you, if you step out the door today, it might feel a little bit muggy. Dew points are reaching the 60s out here in western Kentucky, and that's actually occurring a little bit faster than model data showed. So I'll tell you why that's important. Mid 50s here in central Kentucky, upper 40s out there in eastern Kentucky. And you can kind of look at this map already. So for those of you that know about dew points and how that correlates to severe weather, you can kind of look at this map already and determine where the zone is for severe weather tonight. By far, western Kentucky. Central Kentucky may see some severe weather tonight, but it's not going to be as bad as western Kentucky. And for you, those of you folks out there in eastern Kentucky, the dew points and the warm air advection and the moisture that we talk about, all those fancy words, just are not going to reach that area in time for the line of storms to be able to impact anything tremendously out there for the overnight hours. So if you don't hear me talk a whole lot about eastern Kentucky tonight, that's because it really is not a threat for eastern Kentucky tonight. All right, so that's your current conditions. I do want to talk about the SPC's forecast, and then we'll go into the model data that we have for you as well. Now, usually I show this as a statewide thing, but I'm going to break this down a little bit more into forecasting offices. So we're going to start with the Paducah forecasting office here in their region. So again, I'm going to go zone by zone here, but I'm going to start with this one. And I have it zoomed in a little bit more so that way more of the city names come up with it. So it helps you guys determine a little bit more where things are at. If you don't see your name on the map, you just got to find a city that's close to you, that's biggest that you could think of, and then kind of go off of that context from there. So a level 4 out of 5 risk. I believe this is our first one. And I want to say no, because May 26th may have been a moderate risk. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's been almost a year since we've seen a moderate risk. So that exists out there for western Kentucky. And based off of what I'm seeing on the newest model data, that moderate risk may get shoved about 25 miles to the east there, getting closer to Madisonville, getting closer to Hopkinsville, getting closer but not including Owensboro. So just keep that in mind. I think, again, we have another update from the SPC coming out in 20 minutes. It might be just to the point where they're just going to leave it alone and kind of let things go as they go. But if they are going to make any changes to that update coming out in 20 to 30 minutes, I could see an expansion to the east of the largest zone there. Again, will they do it? Maybe not. At this point, the colors really don't matter. If you're in orange or red, you're at play to see severe weather tonight. Even if you're in yellow. Now, the yellow is more for the wind risk, and I'll break that down for you. Don't worry. But the orange or red is definitely at play for, I mean, even this is the SPC's wording, not my wording. But long-tracked, long-lived tornadoes may be on the table for tonight. So last time we've heard that wording, we ended up having a mini outbreak in the state. Do I think we're going to have an outbreak today? I do think we can have an outbreak of severe winds with a few tornadoes embedded within those winds. I don't think we're looking at a tornadic outbreak, at least for us. Now, to the north there in St. Louis, if you have any friends in Missouri, Illinois up there, they definitely are going to be preparing for an outbreak up there. Could it stretch into western Kentucky? Yes, it can. But some things are kind of obscured on that. And again, I'll break that down when we get to the model data. All right? So Owensboro, Greenville, Madisonville, Hopkinsville, currently in that 3 zone. Paducah, Mayfield, Murray, up toward Henderson. Those are the folks in that 4 out of 5 zone. And then you can kind of see it on the edge of your screen here. And I'll show the other area as well, don't worry. But E-Town, Louisville, Bowling Green, included in that yellow zone. Now, one change I do think that needs to be made is this orange zone, 3 out of 5 enhanced risk, being stretched more toward the east. I don't know if it needs to go all the way to the I-65 line there. You can see the I-65 line, by the way. That blue line is the interstate there. I don't know if it needs to go all the way there, but it needs to get closer. That's just my opinion. And you can kind of see that they're already hinting at that. So if I pull up the wind risk here, they actually have the significant wind risk, which is this hatched area. I know you can't see the key all the way down there, but it's this hatched area. That is already stretched almost to the I-65 line. So I'm not really sure why the enhanced risk hasn't been stretched there, because there is a significant wind gust threat stretching almost all the way to I-65. So I'm not really sure why the categorical outlook doesn't match you get what I mean there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think one thing you can see is the categorical risk getting expanded, which is what we just looked at. getting expanded to the east there for the 3 out of 5 zone. This is the severe wind outlook from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. This pink right here that you're seeing is a greater than or equal to, or I'm sorry, that's a 45 to 59% risk of the probability of severe winds. And this hatched area that you're seeing, which is these black dashes, that is a greater than or equal to 10% probability of significant wind gusts that is greater than 74 mile per hour. So you're talking about, even if let's say we don't see any tornadoes tonight, which I think we do still see a few, right? Let's say we don't. The significant wind gust threat is much more than enough to cause tornado-like damages. I mean, it's that's almost hurricane level winds. You're talking about the potential for widespread wind damage all the way from the Western Kentucky border all the way up to the I-65 corridor. You're talking about this possibility for significant winds. So again, the red area, by the way, is a 30 to 44% chance, and the yellow area is a 15 to 29% chance. Now, again, I'm going to zoom in on other portions of Kentucky, so don't worry. Right now, I'm just looking at the Western Kentucky portion of the area. Here is a severe hail threat. This is something that's not being talked about enough. If we see storms go a bit more elevated rather than being at the surface, well, you're talking about the potential for large hail, maybe even bigger than golf ball sized hail, and that's plenty enough damage or plenty enough weight to that hail to cause injuries to folks that are outside, to cause damages to sidings and roofs and vehicles. I mean, hail can be one of those very, very costly types of thunderstorms. So you're talking about that potential being greatest once again out in Western Kentucky, basically along the I-69 corridor there to points west. All right, the tornado outlook looks like this. And I think this is pretty spot on from the SPC. This is probably about where I would put my map if I made one. The reason we didn't make any maps this time, you guys know we usually do. The reason I didn't is because we're dealing with two parts of a setup here. And when you're dealing with that along with the SPC maps, a lot of those maps can get really confusing. We start putting out maps for every little thing. So that's why we kind of just roll with the SPC's maps on things. And also, I tend to agree with where they have their placements on things. So the greatest tornado threat absolutely is from St. Louis down to Paducah, Mayfield, Murray, over toward but not including Hopkinsville, then up toward the Henderson areas. I think that's where you're going to see the greatest threat for tornadic activity tonight. I do think the strongest tornadoes are probably going to be St. Louis to Carbondale up there in the Illinois area. Can that stretch down to Western Kentucky and West Tennessee? It absolutely can. Once again, that's where the SPC also has their risk, and that is a 15 to 29% chance of a tornado occurring within a 25 miles of a point. And the hatched area that you're seeing there is a greater than or equal to 10% probability of a significant tornado. A significant tornado, by definition, is anything greater than EF2, stretching up to EF5. All right, so that's your risk for tonight there. Over here in this brown area, that is a 5 to 9% risk. You could probably drop that back down to 2 to 4% chance. Again, I don't think the tornado threat, I can't rule it out, obviously, but it's not as great once you get outside of basically the Owensboro to Greenville area. So I do agree with their map here that they have for the tornadic outlook. So for those of you that were asking about that, that's kind of where that's set up. All right. So now what I want to show you here, I'm going to kind of click back out and go to the central Kentucky portion of the area. And just kind of show you, not going to spend too much time on this, but this is kind of how the map plays out for those of you that want to know for in here. I know it kind of cuts off a little bit there at the bottom. We're going to kind of work on that a little bit and try to shape that up a little bit better there. But really, once you get past I-65, I know the yellow kind of extends out toward Bardstown, it extends out toward Campbellsville, it extends out toward Russell Springs, it extends out toward Tompkinsville, but again, in my opinion, where you see this blue line right here is the I-65 line here. It's kind of splitting Kentucky in half. And once those storms get to the I-65 line, I really think they fizzle out quickly. Can you still get some wind bursts to occur? Yes, and that's why the yellow risk has gone past the I-65 line. It's really for the potential for wind bursts, really not for the potential for tornadic activity. Green risk, which is a 1 out of 5, stretches from Cincinnati down toward Somerset and Williamsburg, and then a general thunderstorm risk for the light green area that you're seeing over here. So again, this is why we're not talking about Eastern Kentucky too much, because really, once it gets to the I-65 line, it fizzles out, and especially by the I-75 line that you see right here. Once it gets toward there, it's pretty much dead at that point. I would be shocked. I would be floored if that line makes it toward Lexington, Richmond, Danville, Somerset, and it still is packing up punch. All right, I would be shocked. All right, that's kind of that outlook there. Here's the tornado outlook. Kind of matches it a little bit. Brown risk extends out toward Bardstown and Tompkinsville, and then it goes down to a green risk right there. By the way, the green risk is a 2 to 4% chance, as you can see in your bottom right there. 5 to 9% in that brown area. Again, want to reiterate once more, I think they only have that there because of the amount of energy that's out in western Kentucky. Sometimes with these storms, they can just carry on without regard, and that's why you see some of these expansions to the east a little bit. It's not necessarily for the guarantee of severe weather; it's for the possibility of these storms just carrying on, despite the fact that they shouldn't be carrying on. We've seen that over and over and over again. When storms are running out of the energy, sometimes they can still just carry on, and that's kind of why the maps are placed there like that. All right. Here's a severe wind outlook. Once again, gets to about the I-65 line and then kind of dies down. Beyond that, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The hail threat really dies down really by about the Owensboro, Hartford, and Bowling Green areas. Once you get past to the east of that, I'm really not seeing too much hail. Maybe some 1 inch, some quarter-size hail, but not too much there. All right, for Saturday, here's your outlook for Saturday. So I'm actually going to kind of zoom out to the regional view here, or statewide view, I should say, and kind of show you the Saturday outlook. Now, this is something that I'm not going to touch too much on it because, once again, I want to reiterate what happens tonight and tomorrow morning will greatly affect what happens on Saturday evening. All right. So that's why you haven't told it, or that's why you haven't heard us or many folks talk about Saturday too much, because the God's honest truth is, no, we really don't know yet. We know that to the south in Middle Tennessee, down toward Alabama and all those states down there in the southern portion of the country, we know that an outbreak, maybe even a historic one, is on tap for those folks. How far north that stretches is really going to be up to how much rain we see on Saturday afternoon. If the rain is very expansive, if it's very wide, well, then it's going to work to block that energy down into the southern portions of the country. If the rain is kind of gaps and it's not very wide and it's not as expansive, then some of the more warm air advection, some of the better ingredients for severe weather can lift up into Kentucky at that point. Again, we don't know if that's going to happen. Some models it shows it, some models it doesn't show it. At this point, and our team have talked about this, we're not talking about Saturday evening too much because you just really don't know how it's going to play out until we get these dominoes at first to fall. All right. As of now, the SPC has gone with a general 2 out of 5 risk for pretty much all of the state. Low odds for tornadic activity, decent odds for wind threat, and then decent odds for severe hail threat. Here's the tornado outlook: a general 5 to 9% risk for tornadic activity to occur. There is a slight yellow 10 to 14% risk for tornadic activity stretching up to the Kentucky and Tennessee border. Once again, this can be moved north, it can be moved south. You're not really going to know the tornado outlook until we know how that rain looks tomorrow morning. Again, just very simply, severe winds kind of matches the same way. Yellow risk for pretty much the entire state, with that red risk down there, again, for the southern Kentucky portion of the area bordering Tennessee. Again, this is for Saturday evening, folks, not for tonight's round. I know it's kind of confusing, but I just want to reiterate that once more. Severe hail threat matches the same way. A yellow risk generally for the entire state, which is again a 15 to 29% risk of severe hail. And severe hail can be anything as small as 1 inch diameter hail. So those are your severe weather outlooks from the National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center. And again, they will issue a new map for tonight here in about 10 minutes or so. They may have already issued it. Let me see. Really have not issued it yet. All right. So if we're still on broadcast at that point, I'll try to pull the new maps up. I don't expect too many changes. But yeah, so that's where we are for now. Again, not talking about Saturday night for too much. I'm going to focus more on tonight. So I'm going to start here with the regional outlook and kind of show you that, and then we'll zoom into the local outlook. But first, we have to pay the bills, of course. They are the reason we are able to be here for you guys 24/7. It only takes about 70 seconds, so stick around here. FBI Buildings has over a half a century of experience in renovating, remodeling, and rebuilding any residential and commercial building. They also can give your pole barns new life. If any disaster does hit, be sure to go to FBIbuildings.com for a free quote. Digital Solutions in Radcliffe, Kentucky is a family-owned tech shop. Be sure to repair or purchase any device from them and keep the business local. Thank you to Kayla and her team for supporting W&K. It's a good idea after this harsh winter to make sure your roofs are ready to go for the springtime storms. If you're in or around Hardin County, make sure you check out Hyper Roofing at the link on your screen. And that link, by the way, will also be in the description below. I could list all of their accolades, but just know if I trust them and recommend them to you, that my word is good. Get ahead of the storms by making sure your home is ready for them. Bright Implement has over 15 locations throughout all of Kentucky and making it convenient for you to go shop with them. They're our longest standing sponsor, and we appreciate them so much for their support. They have so many things from outdoor apparel to outdoor vehicles to things to help you on your farm. Right Implement such a phenomenal company and someone that you really want to support in Kentucky. Thank you so much to Right Implement and to all of our sponsors. We appreciate you. Let's get back into the video. Again, a big thank you to our sponsors. Again, they're the reason we're able to be here for you guys 24/7. So I hope you guys consider supporting them as they have supported us here. So here's the model data for you. I'm going to show you the HRRR model from the 12Z run there. And you can see the time. Well, when I zoom in the local view, you'll be able to see the time and the date up here, so you can kind of follow through here with us. What I want to start here with is the regional outlook, and then we'll zoom it into the local view and kind of give you some city labels to work with there. All right. So overall, we have a low pressure that's extremely strong. It's going to be heading right in this general direction, heading up toward the Great Lakes and the Canadian areas. And as that kind of gets over here into all of that warm air, it's going to actually form those storms. You're going to see them pop up on the radar there. I promise it's not a conspiracy theory. This is how science works. You guys would be surprised the amount of messages I get about stuff like that. But anyway, advancing this forward, you'll see those storms kind of pop up and form out there around middle Missouri. And then we'll see another kind of stretch here toward southeastern Missouri, and that's going to be the area that impacts western Kentucky. Also, the potential is there for one of the or two of these cells down here in the southern portion of the map here to kind of break off and head to the north, and those may create a discrete supercell threat. Then that is, unfortunately, one of the strongest storm types that you can have. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking out for as well tonight. Again, this is for tonight going into Saturday morning. Advancing this forward, you'll see what I mean there. It kind of just breaks off from that area, and then it can get to this area. The question is, will we have energy in place? Look at this line, by the way. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That's why I'm saying if you have friends in Missouri or Illinois, you need to make sure that they know what's happening. I'm sure they do, but you need to make sure they know what's happening tonight. That line is tremendous. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen something like that. All right. So at first, for that first little bit that may break up and come up into western Kentucky, the question is, do we have enough energy in place at that point for those storms to actually thrive off of? That's a big if at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see on that, of course. Advances forward, that line actually expands to the south there, and you can see the threat. Supercell, supercell, supercell. And they're all kind of have some space in between them. So when they get to western Kentucky, they're going to be thriving supercells that may be able to put down some significant weather. All right, advancing this forward. Models are starting to have this kind of die down as it gets into western Kentucky. I'm not buying that at all. Too much forcing behind it, too much energy in place at this point. Lower level jet and the 500 millibar, all those fancy terms for the winds above our heads. They're going to be in a great place to support severe weather out in western Kentucky. So even though it kind of doesn't look as pretty or as scary as it does back here, I still think the threat is absolutely there for western Kentucky. You can kind of just go ahead and see here. This is a cell merger occurring that the model's trying to scream at us here. And when those occur, tornadogenesis is usually the result, and that is the formation of a tornadic supercell. All right, advancing this forward, you'll see by the time it gets to the I-65 line, these have turned into maybe some baby supercells at this point, and they're kind of just fizzle out for eastern Kentucky. And then you have Saturday's kind of wave here, and this is the big question for Saturday. You see this absolute mess. This is a squall line of severe thunderstorms that will produce all kinds of severe weather for Middle Tennessee. The question is, how wide is this range showed up here, and does this line travel a bit more north rather than kind of stay stagnant down here? That's why we haven't talked about Saturday too much, because at the moment on model data, it kind of looks just like a very windy, rainy mess for Saturday, and then it's kind of out of here. But I have a sneaky suspicion that there's not as much rain with this as the model's trying to show. So that's why I haven't talked about it too much yet, but that's later on Saturday. Let's go ahead and zoom into the local view here and kind of show you what we're looking at with some timestamps here in the top left you can follow. Of course, 8 a.m. Central Time is 9 a.m. Eastern Time for those of you that want to see in Eastern Time. So, advancing this forward, you'll see up until about 9 to 10 p.m. tonight, nothing really happens. And there may be some lonely supercells here. Again, doesn't look as fancy as this stuff does up here, but do not discount this. This is going to go into an area that is primed for severe weather. The question is, does the lower level jet make it over here in time for these, what we call prefrontal supercells, to really take advantage of the energy that's at play? That's a big if at the moment. Advances forward by about 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. The actual main line, and it's pretty much rotating the entire way, is now making its way through into Western Kentucky at this point. Again, this is midnight to 1 a.m. Eastern Time. By 2 a.m. Eastern Time, in the world, that line should be knocking on Western Kentucky's door, and then it kind of just pushes through after that into Western, kind of West Central, what I call West Central, by about 5 a.m. Eastern Time. And then by about 7 a.m. Eastern Time, it should get to the I-65 line. And then by that point, it should be dying down. You're talking about storms occurring between 5 to 7 a.m. Eastern Time at that point. Usually our most calmest, most tamest time in the atmosphere at that point. Storms should die down. I say should because we've seen time and time again where these storms have exited the main pool of energy, but still have maintained their strength. All right, so I'm not going to completely rule it out, but by the time they get to the I-65 line, it should be pretty much done with that threat. Again, as you can see here, the main focus is absolutely out here in Western Kentucky. What I'm going to show you now is the updraft helicity swaths, and this kind of shows us where rotating storms are tracking. And you can see it does light up Western Kentucky, but that's about it. I don't think the models are handling the updrafts extremely well. But again, this is kind of just showing you where storms are rotating, and that's for Saturday morning, Friday night. So here in a few hours, or here tonight going into Saturday morning, I should say. And then Saturday night, heading into Sunday morning, it does show some rotating storms along the Kentucky and Tennessee border. Again, big question on if those can actually get that far north. We'll have to wait and see. You can definitely tell the brighter colors are out here toward Missouri, and I think you may see a high risk come out for this area. Again, it's just a gut feeling that I have. All right. So that's the HRRR model. The NAM3K model kind of looks pretty similar here. Here's your updraft helicity swaths. It does show some more scattered helicity swaths, but these could also indicate, don't look at these and say, oh my god, a tornado's going to track all the way from Paducah to E-Town. No, these updraft helicity swaths can also show, they just indicate rotating storms. Rotating storms can produce tornadoes, but they can also produce hail and downburst of winds. They don't always have to produce tornadic activity. All right. But this just kind of shows you where that is. And then Saturday night going into Sunday morning, it does have some more rotation occurring throughout Kentucky, but it's all very light. You can see the brighter, more vibrant stuff is down here. All right. Here is the reflectivity from the NAM3K model. It does also have the storms knocking on Western Kentucky's door by midnight. The difference is, though, this is a lot more messy. And that's kind of what we're rooting for, is messy to occur, because that can mean more rain occurring, less chance for supercells to occur. But what I want you to kind of look at is to not be fooled by the messiness. Look, you still have the kidney beans or the hooks occurring in a lot of these cells, as you can see here on the southern side. A lot of these cells, you can see hooks occurring almost everywhere. And then advance this forward to Western Kentucky. It does try to become a line at this point, but again, a lot of gaps in between those lines for rotation and inflow to occur. Advancing this forward to West Central Kentucky also has it dying down around, let's say, the Meade County, down to Hopkinsville area, and then it's pretty much dead by the time it gets toward Eastern Kentucky. It does try to hold on to a slight wind threat for Somerset to Lexington. I'm not 100% buying that, but I can't rule it out either. And then here's Saturday afternoon and evening. Now, this does show more space Saturday evening for storms to work with, and if that's the case, you have to worry about some of these lines getting organized. As you can see here, these will produce a significant wind threat. Again, big ifs on Saturday night, so that's why we're not focusing on it too much. So overall, there are your scenarios for tonight. I do think that severe weather is absolutely on the table, as you can see via these maps here. For Western Kentucky to West Central, and the storm's kind of dying down around the I-65 line or just before the I-65 line, and then producing just a general thunderstorm risk for Lexington to Corbin and London to Prestonsburg and so on and so forth. All modes of severe weather are on the table, from Paducah to Madisonville to Owensboro down to Hopkinsville. Again, that's the corner, that's the area where the most vulnerable ingredients do exist. There are some questions on if storms may fall apart before they even get to Kentucky, so this is not a 100% guarantee. There is some bust potential to this, I will say. But again, I do think at this point, while I can't 100% guarantee it, I feel very confident in the ability for severe weather to be significant tonight for those red and orange areas. Again, the main time frame is going to be from midnight to about 5 to 6 a.m. Eastern time. So that's about 11 p.m. to 4 to 5 a.m. Central time. Could have some cells pop up before that. But the question there is, once again, do we have energy in place to support those cells that may pop up before then? Again, a big if on things there. So that's kind of where we stand for now. Again, I think we've gone city by city here, pretty much. Again, we had a zoomed in view of it before. If you are just now rolling into the broadcast, of course, you can watch this on playback. It'll be available on our YouTube and Facebook for you to watch at any time that you like. I'll get to a few questions now, but I want to warn you, I'm not going to answer everyone's backyard here because I think we went pretty in depth on this video already here. Again, time frame looks to be about midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern time, guys. Do you see this coming in any faster or sooner tonight? No, the models are really in agreement on the time frame. So the time frame is, again, midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern time for the most severe weather. Can storms occur outside of that window? Absolutely, but the peak time frame is midnight to 5 a.m. Again, Morganfield, Kentucky tornado. Again, I'm not going to go into. I hate that question because I don't like forecasting tornadoes city by city here. I will just say you are at risk to see all modes of severe weather. That does include a tornado risk as well. Yes, Austin. The yellow risk does have a 5 to 9% tornado risk with it as well, but that's on the lower side. And again, as you kind of saw for yourself on the model data there, it doesn't really support a tornado risk occurring in that yellow zone as well as it does for the orange and red. So for me, the yellow zone is more of when the storms begin to die down. They will actually produce a downburst of winds. So I think that's why you see the yellow zone there, because we know the storms will die down somewhere in that yellow zone. And as a result of that, before they get completely dead, they will actually shove an outflow of winds. And those winds can be 60 to 70 mile per hour. So those are absolutely going to be severe winds. Update yet? Let me check. Let me refresh it again. We do have an update. Doesn't look like it's changed at all. Let me compare it real quick. Let's go to the Twitter there. Let's compare. Okay, so I'm comparing right now. Okay, so it looks like there was a slight expansion on the southern side here. Wait, this might be an old one. Yeah, this is from... Let me go to... 1 second. I'm going to pull this... I kind of want to compare this, so I'm trying to pull this up. What in the world? All right. It's going to be easier, actually, if we do this from the CWA view. We can actually compare. Pull this over here. Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't look like it's changed on the categorical outlook. Just trying to make sure. Yeah, no changes there. All right, let's check the... And nothing else is rolled in yet. Sometimes this comes in one by one here. Tornado outlook, I don't think this has changed at all. Let's check here. Yeah, no changes to the tornado outlook. I'm assuming there's been no changes to occur. Refresh it again. Okay, the wind one hasn't been updated and the hail hasn't been updated yet. They come in one by one, so sometimes it takes a minute. Jeffrey, yes, we talked a little bit about Saturday. Again, back in the earlier portions of the video. Not going into it too much, but the potential is there, but we have to wait to see how Saturday morning looks. We really do. International Pie Day, I always forget about that. Leah, no. Louisa, Kentucky's far too east. How much rain would be needed for it to block the storms? It's not really necessarily about the amount of rain. It's about the coverage of the rain. So to block the storms for tomorrow, we would need a wide rain shield to occur and for it to last for a long time. Basically, all the way from the late morning to early evening time frame. Will that happen? Don't know yet. Some of the models are indicating that may occur. But so it's not necessarily about the amount of rain. It's more so about the coverage of the rain. And yeah, I don't think they're changing anything here. So here's the wind outlook that just got updated. Let's take a look here. Yeah, no changes to it. The only change that did get made is it was expanded more into Missouri. I think it's the only change that I'm seeing there. Yeah. Let's look at the hail. Okay, the hail one has not been updated yet. Again, it kind of comes in one by one. So we'll look at the hail map here in just a second. I mean, Amber, you're probably going to be going through some tough storms. Again, the potential is there for severe weather. I think regardless, you're going to see thunderstorms tomorrow. It's all about how strong they're going to be. So regardless, you're going to be traveling, Amber, through some tough thunderstorms. Okay, let's see if this is updated yet. Okay, come on. Sometimes these servers are slow. So far, I'm not really seeing any changes for Kentucky, so I don't expect this hail map to change very much either. Bowling Green, again, just outside the window of both day or both modes there. Again, kind of just keep an eye on things here. Bowling Green is one of those areas, if these storms, once again, drive a little bit longer, could impact Bowling Green. I do think Bowling Green sees storm activity overall, but the question on how intense they're going to be is a bit up in the air because you're kind of in one of those areas that's just outside of both ranges. If you want to go away from Mayfield, which way should you go? You should go east. You should go north and east until you get to about the I-65 line. Best time to avoid storms, probably Saturday morning. I mean, you're still going to have to travel through rain, thunderstorms regardless, but if you're trying to get away from the severe window there, probably Saturday morning. Stacy, the yellow risk is more so for the risk of wind damage. Again, anyone that's traveling tomorrow, you're likely going to travel through thunderstorms. It's just about avoiding the severe window. The severe window will be in the evening, late afternoon to evening tomorrow. So just avoiding that time frame is best. Again, Madisonville's in that area where you're at risk for all modes of severe weather, especially tonight, going into early Saturday morning. Again, Chelsea, I play to see all modes of severe weather there. I don't get into forecasting tornado city by city because it's such a sensitive storm type. It's impossible to really forecast city by city with guarantees. I will just tell you that you are at risk for severe weather. And that does include the tornado risk. It's kind of how I play that because it's too messy to try and do city by city. I do think we have some changes here though. No? Okay. So the update for the SPC has just been issued, and I don't see any changes for Kentucky. So pretty good consistency there. Yeah, Dylan, it did expand east a little bit more into Missouri, but I don't really talk about it too much, so that's why I'm saying there's no real changes for us here. When is the next SPC update? I believe it's this afternoon around either 4 or 5 p.m. Kev Rose says, is tomorrow a different story for East Kentucky? It potentially can be, but it's just going to, again, guys, tomorrow's really going to depend on the amount of rainfall that we see, or not necessarily the amount of rainfall, but the coverage of rainfall that we see Saturday afternoon. All right. All right. So that's going to do it for us here with you guys here. We've been live for what? Almost 40 minutes here. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, I probably have answered it at some point throughout this video. So this video is going to process for a few minutes, and then it will be available to watch for you guys at any time on Facebook and YouTube. So if you have any questions about specific cities and stuff, I'm sure I've already answered it. So just watch this back on playback here in a few minutes here for me. I'm going to get back to looking at some more of the new data rolling in here with you guys and keep you guys updated throughout the day on all of our social medias. That's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning on in here with us. I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster, here with Weather Now Kentucky. Until next time, stay safe, folks.